Aria Langston had mastered the art of invisibility. She walked the halls of Rosewood High like a ghost never really seen, never really heard. Teachers knew her name, sure, but not much else. Most students probably couldn't even pick her out of a yearbook. She wasn't unpopular because people hated her. She was unpopular because she was forgettable, not loud, not beautiful, just quiet. Spent evenings sketching in her notebook while listening to the faint hum of her mom-ass soap operas in the living room. Her world was small and soft, untouched by the chaos that ruled teenage existence. The kind of girl who always had her nose in a book, her hair tied in a loose braid, her hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands like armor. She liked it that way. Noise and attention only brought trouble. Aria's life was routine, predictable. She sat in the back of classrooms, ate lunch by herself behind the gym. Tall, lean, and constantly shadowed by rumors that traveled faster than wildfire. People said he'd been expelled from his last school for punching a teacher, that he smoked on the rooftop, that he once broke a guy's arm in a fight over a vending machine. Nobody really knew anything concrete, but they felt his presence like a cold wind before a storm until he stepped into it. His eyes always held a look of boredom, like the world wasn't worth his time. And everyone gave him space. Even teachers hesitated when Denver walked into a room. He didn't follow rules. He bent them, broke them, made his own. Denver Maddox, his eyes gray, piercing narrowed as he looked down at her. Even his name made people flinch. He was Rosewood's nightmare wrapped in leather. But instead, he knelt down beside her, picked up one of her sketchbooks, and flipped it open. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was sharp biting. And Aria had no intention of ever crossing paths with him, but fate rarely listens to plans. It happened on a gray, rainy afternoon. Aria had just left the library, arms full of books and her backpack slipping from her shoulder. The hallway was empty. Most students were already at lunch. She rounded a corner too quickly, her foot sliding on the wet tile. She collided into someone hard, sending her books flying. He didn't speak, just watched her, silent, observing. She fell backward with a squeak, eyes wide, and then she looked up. Denver. She wasn't sure what game he was playing, and she didn't want to be a pawn in it, but curiosity was a tricky thing. And Denver Maddox was nothing if not curious. Her heart froze. He stood there, his jaw clenched, rain still dripping from his black hoodie. Aria scrambled to grab her books, not daring to look him in the eye. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. She expected him to shove her. Or curse, or laugh, his brow furrowed. You drew this? He asked, holding up a charcoal sketch of a girl curled in a shadowy corner. Aria nodded hesitantly. He stared at it for a moment, then handed it back to her and stood up. Watch where you're going. Then he walked away. It would have ended there. Except it didn't. The sunset bled through the stained glass windows. She hummed softly to herself as she painted shadows crawling across a forest scene. The next day, he was there leaning against her locker before first period. The day after that, he sat to rows behind her in English class. Then one row, maybe because I see beauty in the broken things. Then right behind her, but monsters don't cry themselves to sleep. Aria tried to ignore him. One afternoon, as she pulled out her sketchbook during free period, she found a note slipped between the pages. Why do you draw pain like it's familiar? The handwriting was messy, scrawled in thick black ink. How her mom worked 3 jobs and still came home too tired to talk. How Aria once had panic attacks so bad she couldn't leave her room for weeks. On the bridge near the old park, she learned that Denver lived with his uncle after his dad went to prison. That his mom had died from an overdose when he was 8. That he kept a tiny notebook full of poems, though he never showed anyone. She looked around, her heart pounding. He was there at the back of the class, head tilted, watching. She didn't reply, but the next day there was another note. You ever feel like the world is too loud and you're just drowning? And another, do you believe some people are born broken? He stopped picking fights. He started turning in assignments. He even apologized to a teacher once. Eventually, she wrote back, I believe pain doesn't always show on the surface. The exchange continued, quiet and secret. They never spoke directly, never made eye contact. Just notes passed through textbooks, lockers, sketchbooks. Then, one evening, she found herself alone in the art room, finishing a mural for extra credit. She didn't hear him come in. You paint darkness like it's beautiful, his voice murmured behind her. Like anyone who gets close ends up broken. She turned, startled. Just sat in the back, hood pulled low. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. For once, he looked uncertain. Secret texts, shared headphones on the bus. The world didn't stop judging, but they stopped caring. She lowered her brush, a boy who had been failed to many times, who didn't know how to ask for help. He walked in, slowly, and stared at the painting. Everyone sees me as a monster, he said after a moment. The words hung in the air between them. That night was a turning point. They began talking, really talking. Behind the bleachers, at the rooftop at dusk. And he learned about her, too, how Aria's dad walked out when she was a baby. They were two broken souls orbiting the same grief, just in different bodies. People began to notice. Whispers followed them through hallways. She pushed past the door and found him on the porch, cigarette in hand, eyes hollow. What's Aria doing with him? She's just his new project. He's going to break her, not the rumors. Not the scars. But Aria didn't care. For once, she felt seen, and Denver he started to soften around her. But darkness doesn't vanish easily. One afternoon, Denver didn't show up, not for school, not at the bridge, not even online. Then she saw the bruise. The next day, he came back with a black eye and a cracked knuckle. He didn't speak. Aria waited until lunch, then found him under the bleachers. Did someone hurt you? She asked. He didn't reply. She reached for his hand. Let me in, Denver. He looked at her, then really looked, and she saw the boy beneath the rage. Sometimes I feel like I'm poison, he whispered. You're not poison, she said. You're human. And then, slowly, painfully, he kissed her. It wasn't fireworks. It was trembling hands and scared hearts. But it was real. They began to fall into a rhythm. Midnight walks until prom night. Denver had promised to come. Aria waited in a silver dress, fingers shaking. He never showed. No call, no message. The next morning, she heard he'd been arrested for a fight outside a liquor store. She didn't see him for 3 weeks. Then a letter came. Not a text, not a note, a real letter. I ruin everything I touch. You deserve better. I'm sorry. She tore it in half and marched to his house. His uncle tried to stop her, but she didn't care. You don't get to decide what I deserve, she said, voice breaking. He didn't speak, so she stepped closer. I choose you, Denver, and he broke. Tears slipped down his cheeks, silent, ashamed. She wrapped her arms around him and held him. That summer changed everything. Denver started therapy. Aria entered an art competition and won. They applied to the same community college. Life wasn't perfect. They still had dark days, still had fights. But they chose each other, again and again. Because sometimes the quiet girl and the broken boy don't just survive, they save each other. And in the mess of high school chaos, judgment, and pain, they found the one thing no one expected: hope.